Everyone, it's your energy healer Zach Luz. Today's energy healing is going to be on releasing debt. Just in case you're new to these picky healings, here's how they work. In a second, I'm going to pop up a bunch of numbers on the screen. Then you're going to let your intuition guide you to pick one of the numbers. That number is going to correspond with your specific energy healing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read your patterns, and then I'm going to basically read the group so I can figure out what are the main patterns that are keeping you in debt. And then I'm going to help you release that debt, whether that's financial debt, karmic debt, whatever kind of debt. I don't know exactly what's going to come up until I go in and read everybody, but that's what I got the feeling to work on today, so that's what we're going to do. If you're curious about how any of this stuff works, you can always go and listen to my podcast where I talk about how I came into all this. But in these YouTube healings, I just want to focus on sensing what your patterns are. I'll talk to you a little bit about why you took that pattern on, how that served you, and then I'll help you clear it out of your space. And as you clear the patterns, your life's going to change. Okay, cool. So I'm going to pop the numbers up on the screen now. You can pause the video if you'd like, take some time, figure out which one's the right one for you, and I'll just hang out for a sec while you do that. Okay, cool. I'm going to assume that you got your number by this point. The next step is an optional but strongly recommended grounding meditation. What this is going to do for you is, one, it's going to make you feel a lot more stable because it's going to bring you into the present moment. So as we're doing the vibrational editing and energy work, you're going to feel a lot more stable and less disoriented by it. And then two, it also makes it a lot easier for me to read what your patterns are. So you don't have to do it, but if you want to, we're going to go ahead and get started with that now. And last note is, although these look and sound and feel a lot like a normal meditation or a guided meditation, they're not the same, they're different, and they can be very disorienting, so please don't listen to this while you're driving. All right, let's go ahead and get in. Take a second to get settled wherever you are. Get your feet flatly planted on the ground if you're sitting down. If you're standing up, make sure that you're in a stable spot. Or if you're laying down, make sure that you're not going to be interrupted. Once you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold. Release through your mouth. And inhale again. Hold. Exhale. And another inhale. Hold. Exhale. Go ahead and keep that rhythm going, and then I'll start generating frequencies that help you shift. On your next inhale, you can ask yourself this question. It's not my question, but it's a really good question. How do I connect to pure source even stronger? Okay. So as you're doing that, let's go ahead and do a little body scan. So go ahead and pay attention to your feet right now. And start bringing your attention up your legs. up into your hips, into your lower torso, into your spine, noticing each vertebrae stacked on top of each other. Into our upper torso. Down our arms. Into our hands. Noticing everything that you can. Back into our necks and throat. Back of the head. Top of the head. Our face. Forehead, eyebrows. Nose, cheeks, chin, mouth. And just noticing how you did with that. Noticing how challenging or easy it was for you to maintain your focus on your body the whole time. Or if you like drifted away. Not making a judgment about that either way, but just noting it. Like naturally, are you mostly in your body, or naturally are you kind of drifting away and vacating it a little bit? Pulling ourselves right into this moment in time. Okay. That should do it. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, group number 1, let's see what's going on for you. Okay, so here's what I'm noticing for you, group 1. So the first picture that came to mind was somebody in handcuffs, like a prisoner. And the type of debt pattern that you're running is like, I give myself to you. It's kind of like a slavery thing where we feel like our whole self, our whole beingness is indebted to someone else. So this could have come in through all different kinds of ways, but that's basically the pattern that I'm sensing. So the way that this might show up for you in your normal everyday life is you might, anytime you meet someone new, you already feel like you owe them stuff. You already feel like you have to serve them. You already feel like you have to be perfect for them. You have to feel like you have to please them. Even if you meet someone that's brand new in your reality, you already feel like you owe something to them. So that's basically the pattern that you're running. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter who you meet. So the way that this one might show up for you is you might be apologizing all the time. Like you're always apologizing to new people, and other people might even look at you and say like, why are you always apologizing? You didn't do anything wrong. It's like, I'm sorry I was late. I'm sorry I didn't do this faster. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's like that indebtedness that you feel, that pattern, that's why you feel like you have to serve, you have to deliver more. It's like why you have to be better. It's like all this stuff. It's like you feel like you owe your whole self to someone else. So for this group, there are two ways that that kind of thing can happen. So one is we sell ourselves. So it's like we want something else so bad that we go like, here, I'll just sell you my soul. And then basically they charge a royalty on that. So everything you do, like they're always going to get a royalty on that. So you go into that and you make that contract with somebody, and it doesn't even have to be you. It could be someone in your family line. They just really wanted wealth, for example. They really wanted, I don't know, peace of mind. They really wanted revenge. Like, and they say, I'll do anything for this. And some other being comes in, makes a deal, and then there you go. Then the debt is in place. And the way it works is it's like a royalty. So if you've ever seen like a franchise, say someone has a restaurant, like that's like a fast food chain, and then the franchisor, the company that leased them all the abilities, that taught them how to do everything, that basically was responsible for their success, they get the chunk of the profits every single time. And it doesn't matter if they transfer that franchise to their kids. You know, say they get old and then they are getting ready to pass away, but the business is still working, is still producing profit. They give the business to their kids. Franchisor is still like, you need to pay up. You still need to give us our cut. That's one way that this came in, where you knowingly made this kind of deal. The other way that you could be feeling like your whole self is a debt is by it's kind of being tricked into doing that kind of thing. So with contracts, you know, we have these contracts come up all the time. You can see it like on apps. It's like, do you agree to the user agreement? And then it's this huge long contract that nobody ever reads, and they just hit agree, like that kind of thing. So it's like that on the energetic plane. So someone was like, oh yeah, this is fine, go ahead, you don't need to look at it, and then you just went into it. So for this one, the way it might show up in your day-to-day is you just kind of feel like a lot of peer pressure to go along with whatever's going on, and you just kind of like look around, and you probably have a lot of other people in your world that feel like it's normal for them to sell themselves. So then you just kind of look around, you're like, okay, I guess this is what we're all doing, I guess this is how it works, and then you just go along with it. So that way you're kind of being tricked into it. The other way, it's more overt and like intentional on your part without you realizing the ramifications of that in the long term. You know, either way, whatever pattern you're running, you want to help us break that. Every pattern that we take on, it has some kind of positive intention behind it. So until we find what that is, you can't shift it into a new one. So let me see if I can figure out what that is for us. So it feels like taking those patterns on, it gave you clarity, or gave whoever signed up for that clarity. And like, you don't have to take as much responsibility as well. Especially if we go back further in time into like prior generations and different time periods. Let's say, for example, you were in a really awful, like hopeless environment, and then something came in and was like, hey, you're going to have to indebt yourself to somebody else, but it's going to completely change everything for you. And if what you got going isn't so great, it kind of makes a little bit more sense why you take this on. I just want to stress that this doesn't necessarily have to do with you. This could have been something that one of your ancestors did and took this on. You're still running it because there's still some part of love. There's still something that your ancestor is trying to hand down to you, or you're trying to maintain that contact with them. So I'm going to help you let go of that. The point is, you're running that pattern because that's what you inherited, but two, you haven't like figured it out to change it yet. But at this point, now you know, so now you can change it. Another reason is you may not have felt like you had a choice at the time, or whoever kind of went into this didn't feel like they had a choice. Like as in the case of war, when somebody comes in and they just dominate everyone, and then it's like, well, we can either die or go along with this, and then we're just trying to survive. And then we have that idea of, okay, this is just going to be a stepping stone to something else, but then we can't get out. So that's why we feel this sense of indebtedness. So no matter where we are in the world, no matter who we meet, we already feel like, oh, I owe you something. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then we can see that same pattern is going to show up in every different area of our life. So in our finances, there's always going to be some kind of debt. No matter how much money we make, we're always going to have somebody else that we feel like we owe, and that, could just really like take everything from us unless we do this. In relationship, we'll feel super vulnerable. We'll feel like the other person has like all the cards, they have all the leverage, and that we owe them. We might feel really bad if we want to leave, like we owe them something. So it's just like that sense of inequity that we feel like we can't just go and live our lives because we always are running this pattern. So that's what'll help you let go of. Oh, and I just want to say this too. Teachers can be really helpful, but make sure you never ever feel like you owe them something. It's especially important with this group. There can be some weird power dynamics that happen with teachers. After somebody teaches you something and you feel indebted to them, especially if they're really helpful, you want to check that out and make sure that you're not signing up for that kind of thing in the future. So that's probably what this is. It's just like after this, you might have new people come into your life, and you just want to make things very clear. And if there's any sense of someone like expecting you to indebt yourself to them, don't do it. So just walk away, say no. It doesn't matter how good the opportunity is, just step away from it. So, okay, so that's enough talking. Let's go ahead and I'll just start working on you. So if you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold. Release your mouth. Okay. So in the same way that a government can intervene and just take a contract between a franchisor and a franchisee and then just break it, be like, no, you guys have to sign a new one if you want to keep this arrangement. That's what I'm helping you do. so that now you see and you understand what you're getting yourself into if you're making an agreement with someone. And then it's your choice. Making it easier for you to perceive. It's like in the user agreement that we just hit accept, I'm like highlighting all of the areas that you might want to pay attention to for you. Or helping you just notice what are the areas that are the most important that you definitely do need to actually read carefully. That might be feeling like giving our ancestors a hard time. Like, why did you do that? Why'd you get us into that? If they hadn't done exactly what they did, you wouldn't be here. And continuing to blame them just forces you of your power. So let's focus on your power and your authority. Okay. All right. So after this, you're probably going to see people coming into your life. They're going to be trying to they're going to try to get you to agree to those kinds of contracts. So this could be in any area of your life, and I'm using contracts as a metaphor, but it could be like your relationships, family members. It could be finances. But it's going to be like all these different areas where people are like trying to get you to re-agree to the terms of the old deal. So this is where you will actually notice things that you didn't see before. You'll be able to see if there's like they're going to charge you a royalty payment that you're going to have to pay for forever, or if it's just a straight up agreement, and then you can make your own choices, and then you can empower yourself to not be indebted. But you're the only one that can do this. I can't make that choice for you. There's free will, so I can bump you into the right direction, nudge you, but it's up to you. After this, you're gonna see like all those people come, and then you'll see things from a different perspective, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I understand. I see how this happened, and now this is the new choice that I'd like to make. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that, and please feel free to let me know in the comments how it's going. If you did enjoy today's energy healing, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing with your friends, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. All right, hey group 2, let me take a look and see what's going on. Okay, so for this group, it feels like your birthright is to have people indebted to you. So in this like whole debt paradigm, most people that are coming to this, they're thinking of like, how do I release debt? How do I release the debts that I owe? For you, it's kind of flipped around the other way, where you're the one that feels like a bunch of people owe you stuff. So this could be money, this could be emotionally, this could be in health, but basically you're keeping that paradigm of debt, and you're trying to bring that with you, but you're moving into a consciousness where that doesn't make sense anymore. The whole debt thing is based on like accumulation and like an ongoing score card, like a ledger basically. But where we're going collectively is it's like everything has to re-render itself in the moment. It has to like upload itself in the moment. So you can't like amass things. It's like you're a boat and then you've got a bunch of holes in the bottom of the boat. So then in order to generate a sense of security and safety, you just go grab other people and you say, hey, I need you to put your thumb and plug up this hole in the bottom of the boat. And then there's a ton of different holes in the boat. So then you say, you put your thumb there, you put your finger there, you put your finger there. And then pretty soon you're like always pulling people in, and they always keep pushing them, putting their fingers in all the holes in the bottom of the boat. But it's like the boat is still sinking since you're running the paradigm of debt. Even though you're the one that's supposed to be in control of the debt because you have people that owe you, it still runs this pattern of debt. So this is why you have people around you that like underwhelm you, they mess things up. It's like they're incompetent around you. The reason they show up like that is because they have to have some sort of debt to you. So this is why your friends might stiff you with the bill. This is why emotionally your friends might not be able to meet you at the same level that you're at. Like they'll underwhelm you, they'll let you down, that kind of thing. All of that keeps this debt in place. So where we're going collectively doesn't really allow for this paradigm of debt to continue anymore. So for you, even though you're in the position that's a lot better than being the one that owes, it's actually not that much better. Even if you're the one that everyone owes, like a lot of people would think like, oh, it's so good to be the one that everybody owes because then you are collecting all this, payment. But the problem for you is like then you're surrounded by a bunch of incompetent people that all owe you something. So that's not fun because then you feel like you have to be like policing everybody. You have to be like watching your back. And you're just basically trying to generate security through controlling people outside of you. If things have been like extra hard for you over the past couple months, that's because the consciousness is shifting away from that where everything's getting less dense. So basically, the things that were solid that we could like hold on to, they're kind of like they're evaporating. Things are becoming less dense. So basically the whole paradigm of debt that can't exist in this new space because everything that was dense, it was like solid, like okay, I could hold on to these people. So just if you have like employees or you're like always a leader of a project or stuff like that, a lot of times you were in that position because you had this intuitive ability to control people, and they just basically saw this pattern where like they would just naturally feel like they owe you things. So for you, that whole paradigm of like people like leaning on you for direction and guidance and then you leaning on them for your sense of security, it's like you can't keep that anymore. So that's getting washed away. So the past couple of months have probably been really, really hard for you because that's basically how you generated security. And now you might be feeling it even more. So then you try to grab harder and you try to grab more. When we're doing this, it's just because we want to feel safe and we want to feel secure and we want to feel like, all those holes at the bottom of our boat are plugged up by someone so that the boat isn't sinking. But what has to happen here is you have to have a new, it's like you just need to get rid of that boat. Like that boat is not working. You gotta have a whole new bottom of the boat. And then when you come in with that new foundation, then you can feel secure on your own. And then you don't have to go and recruit people to go hold their thumb in the holes in the bottom of your boat because that's so exhausting. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I just getting like a little sense of how stressful your life must be is insane because that used to work, but now like the ability to grab and hold on to people and like make people behave the way that you want, like you're probably having that backfire a lot now where it's like people just won't listen, they won't do the things that they're supposed to do, and you just can't get them to cooperate. You might be getting in more fights and stuff like that, and you're like, what is going on? The consciousness is shifting so that we can't really do that. So you have to let go of this paradigm of debt that even though if you had to choose between the two sides, it feels like you're on the better side to a lot of people. It's not really because people may tell you that you're like very powerful and a natural leader and all those things. You don't feel it because you have to get everyone else to behave a certain way in order for you to feel okay. And that's really hard. So let's take a look at where this program came from, and we'll start making peace with it so that it starts shifting. Okay, so here's where it comes from. So it's like you want to be a leader. The image that I got in my head was like back in the olden days, it was people that stockpile weapons. And if they do that, they have all of the weapons, and then they take away the weapons from everybody else in the kingdom, then they can be the leaders, and then nobody can really question their authority. And the positive intention in that is then we can bring order to everybody else, and we can create stability, and we can create a safe, bountiful, prosperous kingdom from which everybody else can benefit. So as long as we have control of everything, then basically in our heads, everybody is safe. So stockpiling weapons, that's a little bit more dramatic of an example, but even like think about this emotionally. It's like if I take away everybody's ability to be stressed out, to be worried, to be having a bad time, to be having bad days, if I like figure out some way where people just can't be negative around me, then everybody's going to be positive. But it doesn't really work out like that. So what we're doing is we're using debt as the mechanism to try to make us feel safe and secure. The positive intention behind it is like you're trying to move everyone forward because you're like very good at making things happen. But there's like a huge cost to you. It's like constant paranoia, constant fear that someone's going to like overthrow you. I watched this Netflix show, and it was about the Japanese shoguns, and it was about how the whole country was basically in war for 100 years. So it was just like one faction was trying to overthrow the other, or trying to overthrow the other, and they just kind of got into this like constant warrior mode. And it was just always like one faction, one area of the country just going and like overthrowing everybody else, and just trying really hard to create some sense of stability and safety. So what ended up happening was everybody started killing everybody, and then you have all this backstabbing and politics and all that stuff. And then the one guy that was able to actually unite all of Japan under one banner was this guy who was just, he went completely insane. He ended up murdering like his own son because he was worried that his son was, from this woman that he had an affair with, and he was going to be able to lay claim to the throne, and like it just drove him crazy, expending all this energy trying to create this sense of security internally, but he was doing it through other people. So even though it feels like the only way to be more safe is to have more people owe you things, for you to over deliver even more so that people feel like they owe you, it's just like continuing forward with that paradigm. It's just not going to work, and it's not going to satisfy you. It's going to be kind of like those shoguns. They're constantly trying to overtake one another, and even the guy that makes it to the top, and he's the top shogun or whatever, his like the program of debt, like of you owe me, it just swallows him whole, because he conquers all of Japan, and then he's like, I don't know what to do. And then he's like, okay, we're going to go conquer China. And everybody is like, dude, that's not a good idea. Why would you, like, why do you need to do that? You've achieved like some sense of stability and peace in the country and prosperity. Like, why would you throw all that away? And the reason he's doing it is just because he feels like he needs more. He's constantly like looking for more people to plug up the bottom of his boat. So the way that we move past this is we just let it go, and we create a whole new paradigm. But in order for you to do that, you have to let go of the fake security that you feel when people owe you. Like if they owe you positive emotions, if they owe you favors, if they owe you money, you have to let go of being able to like control them that way. So you have to basically release this whole paradigm of debt. So let's talk about what you can have instead of that. So a lot of us are thinking like, well, I don't want to let them off the hook that easy. Like they owe me, and they owe me for a reason. They have to honor that debt. So holding on to this paradigm of being owed things is what perpetuates that feeling of lack of security inside of you. Also, it breeds a ton of resentment in you, which is kind of like you drinking a little bit of poison each day because you're so mad at everybody else. That doesn't work. No one can afford that luxury of poisoning themselves just a little bit each day because they're holding on to the resentment. So the debt and being owed and feeling like there is this injustice that needs to be righted, the more that you hold on to that, the more you actually hurt yourself through this. So let's figure out a new way of you generating security. So the new way is like with hot air balloons. So in the old paradigm, basically instead of each person being in their own hot air balloon where they can raise themselves up in their own way, you were sitting in your hot air balloon, you're like, okay, everybody else out there, you have to deflate yours a little bit so then I get to feel taller. And then when you want them to go higher, you're like, okay, now you all have to inflate them up so you guys go past me. So like they all have to adjust to me. But then the only way to do that, I mean, it's like that's just so exhausting to try to get all those people. So what happens is the new way is you can move yourself up or down, left or right, however you want. So the way this all connects back to debt is like if you gain control of yourself, you gain that like internal mastery, then it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. You're going to naturally feel good, and then you won't need to use debt as a mechanism to try to control other people. You'll just feel that sense of freedom inside of yourself, and then you're actually free to explore. Like the reason that you've been having all the people plug up all the holes of the bottom of the boat for you is because you actually want to move into a new direction and a new world and brand new frontier, that kind of thing. So you can't get to that like freedom of personal exploration while you have to make everybody else act the way that you want. So that's what's in store for you if you're willing to let go of that feeling of being owed. You'll still have justice, but that's going to be solved by like a higher order. You kind of let go of that. It's like more like you rely on karma and source to figure things out, and you relinquish that as being your personal thing. So if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and help you work on that. So if you're ready, take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold. Release. I'm going to start working. Bring your attention to your heart area. Just like in the case of a crime, if you try to go punish the criminal, like it can't work. You have to let go and let the judge handle it. Let the judge punish the criminal. You can't spend your whole life policing criminals, otherwise you don't get to live your life. This is about you coming into like that leader, that explorer, that person that's bravely exploring new boundaries, not getting stuck in being a tyrant. It's like you're not a punisher, you're a creator. Cool, that's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later. All right, group 3, let's see what's up. Okay, so first thing I notice is like for this group, there's just a lot of debt. Probably for most of us, it's financial. Probably feels like a mountain of debt. You guys are just feeling like, how did this happen? What am I gonna do? Like, how do I get out of this? Like, it feels really overwhelming. Feels like you're taking refuge in the group, like blending into the crowd. It's like it's not a problem because we're all in a ton of debt. You've probably noticed, especially in the past couple months, it's been a lot harder to hide in the group. The way forward for this group is for you to separate out and be on your own, which goes against a lot of instinctual things. Like we have this primal desire to belong in the tribe, and when that gets threatened, it doesn't feel so good. So having a bunch of debt, it's like having your membership card for being part of the group. So for most of us, not all, this comes from our father or male energy, whichever parent had that more male energy, and still affects you even if you didn't have a parent around or you didn't know them, just whoever your biological father is. It's kind of like when there's fear and danger on the outside of the group, the safest place to be is in the center of the group, not to be on the fringes. So this could be of society, of our family, of whatever group that we identify ourselves in. The safest thing to do is the most normal thing to do, because then you're all the way on the middle. You're not on the outside facing danger. And you could look at this throughout all of the evolution of man. It's just been always like, yes, we celebrate a lot of the warriors and people get glorified as being the heroes, but the vast majority of the ones that actually survived, they're the ones that like stayed in the center. For this group, it's learning that debt isn't as dangerous, which I'm sure that's triggering a lot of us, which is good. What we're doing is we're relying too much on money, too much on finances to keep us safe. It's like we're overestimating the danger, and we're underestimating our own capability, our own sense of being divinely guided, and our own action. So the way that this pattern's working is we basically inflate the danger that debt is, So we're blowing it up and it's like we're making debt, like this mountain of debt. We're making this scarier and scarier. We're just amplifying how scary it is. And then we scare ourselves so much that we run to the center of our group and then we just do whatever's normal. And we try to kind of fit in, blend in, and then just do the normal thing, which the normal thing for probably the majority of people watching this is to have a lot of debt. Like a lot of people have a lot of debt. It's just kind of a normal thing. So since that's the normal thing, you go all the way to the center of the normal. It's like the median. So you run to that, and then you're underestimating who you are in relation to that. It's like how some people, they have like creepy dolls, and then what happens is you look at that doll and then the doll freaks you out and it's scary and it's creepy and it's weird. But what we're doing in our head is we're making the doll, 150 feet tall and like really amplifying it with our like negative imaginings of how destructive that doll could be. And then we envision the doll like going around and knocking over buildings and lighting people on fire and doing all this crazy stuff. And we start visualizing and imagining all of those things. And then what happens is like it paralyzes us into like so much fear. So that's this thing that's going on here. Just replace the doll with debt. So it feels important to note here that dollars, it's all fiat currency. So it's not backed by anything. It's just backed by promises. And it's backed based on a lot of people inflating the fear and under representing their own capacity as a human being. I want to see why we're doing that. Okay, so it has to do with like ancestors. So let's say you had very, very wealthy ancestors, but then they kind of like were full of themselves and kind of put you down for not being as wealthy and for having debt problems. One reason to overinflate the debt is you make it so big, then it doesn't make it look like they had as much to deal with. So it's a way of like not feeling so bad, not feeling so guilty, not feeling so much less than. And then the flip side is if you had ancestors that were really poor, the way that you're using this is it's an attempt to honor them. So it's like the reason they were poor is because they were scaling an even bigger mountain. So like if we inflate the size of the mountain, then it feels like more respectful to that ancestor's legacy. So whether we feel the need to inflate or deflate their legacy, that shifts how we perceive our own problem. Okay, so let's talk about the new pattern that we want to bring in to replace this. The new pattern is just seeing yourself as so much bigger than, a little bit of debt. It's like remembering your humanity and your human capacity rather than reducing yourself down to a number that's either positive or negative. So it's basically like turning you into the mountain. And then like, yes, you have the money problem, but when you're so much bigger than the money problem, like it can't govern you. So you want to stabilize in that where money is just one aspect of your life. It's not this like all-consuming ball of stress that overwhelms you or has the capacity to overwhelm you. It's like we want to feel bigger, grander. So that's just like something we have to do where it's like, oh yeah, it's just like it's like a late fee on a library book. It's not something that's that big of a deal in the broader scale of your life, which I know right now it might feel pressing and it might feel like immediate, but when we view ourselves as extremely capable and bigger than, if we become an even bigger mountain, then like, yes, we still have to deal with it, but then we don't get paralyzed. It doesn't trigger all the fears, and then we can just solve it as if it's another problem. Yeah, it's like home improvement. I'm about to order this chair, and then the chair's gonna get here, and then I'm gonna assemble it and put it together. Like if I blew this up in my head of like, oh no, it's going to be this huge problem. It's going to be this nightmare experience. And how am I ever going to do it? And it's like, then you can freak yourself out. But it's like, really, it's extremely simple to solve that problem when you're not feeling like the problem is bigger than you and I'm not inflating it. So that's how we want to approach money and debt. There are solutions. And as long as you stay bigger and hold yourself and view yourself with the proper and appropriate amount of respect and honor, then yeah, then it's just like a little problem to deal with. Then you don't give it more power than it should have. You're probably already feeling that right now, the way that I've been talking about this, and I'm also working on you while I'm talking. Like you're already probably feeling like a little bit safer about this and a little bit like, okay, yeah, there are solutions out there. I can work through this. So the thing we're going to have to let go is being able to affect our ancestors' or parents' perception of themselves. I'm just going to start working on you, so if you're ready, take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. You might feel me generating frequencies, and then you're going to start resonating there. So this might help some of us. Just notice how ridiculous it is for someone to equate their value as a human being to the number of dollars that they can offer someone. Going from this problem is too big for me to handle to like I'm too big for this problem to handle me. So right now I'm pushing you into your spirit self. And if you think about your problems right now, just notice how they feel in comparison to how they did at the beginning of this. So when we hold that perspective. We hold that power. It's just like all our problems become insignificant. So it's about you holding that perspective and staying in that space. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But if you want, you can keep hanging out in meditation. It's going to feel like I'm still working on you. And you're still going to experience the benefits as if I was still working on you. So I do recommend that you hang out here on your own. That'll help you still feel like you can generate this on your own, where you don't need me or anybody else to sustain you. You'll feel your own grandness. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing with a friend, or liking this video, and I will see you next time. Thanks. All right, hey, group 4, let's see what's going on for you guys. This group feels like they use debt as a way for them to know that they're a good person. It's like the thinking that if I'm in debt, I haven't taken too much, and therefore there's plenty for everyone else. So you might be the kind of person that's very passionate about sharing, and especially like underdogs, making sure that underdogs get their fair share. And you might give of yourself in order to make sure the underdogs get their fair share. So if you grew up with a lot of religious background, that might be one place where this came from. So sometimes even if we don't grow up with a religious background and we're like, oh yeah, that doesn't affect me, but we still have ideas of what constitutes a good person and a bad person. It's kind of just a variation of like heaven and hell. So yeah, the debt is basically I'm a good person insurance. It's like a way for you to prove to yourself that you're a good person, because you can like just point to that and then you're like, see, I'm leaving so much for everyone else. So like using our debt as like a way of stabilizing us isn't actually the right way to do that. It's kind of like the same way of saying like, oh, I'm a good lover. And it's like, well, why are you a good lover? Well, because they compliment me. There are a lot of people that are in like very abusive relationships where they never get compliments, but they're phenomenal. And then there are people in, amazing relationships, but they don't feel the need to compliment one another on a regular basis. So here's the reason why I say it's not good for them and not good for you. So first, why it's not good for you. When we use something outside of ourselves as the basis to justify us, then we become at the mercy of that thing. So the benefit of it is it makes it a lot clearer for us to know how we're doing. So here's the thing, like when we try to give our stuff away to other people, we can't override their programs for them. So for example, like with you and the debt that you have, just look at, no matter how many nice things people did for you and how much people did to help you out, your pattern of being in debt still showed up no matter what anybody else did. And the reason that happens is because you have ultimate power and ultimate creational authority in your life. Your pattern, that's like the bottom line. So yeah, a lot of us might be afraid that us being abundant is going to mess us up somehow. Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time. She's like, you can never be confused enough to give people clarity. You can never be sick enough to make other people healthy. You can never be poor enough to make other people abundant. Something to think about. So like we have to run ourselves based on our own definition of what makes up good and bad if we still want to be in that kind of paradigm. Because like if we take it to a romantic relationship, for example, if someone says you have to be like this and then I'll tell you you're good, or if you don't do it then I'll tell you you're bad, is that really the best way for us to be the best version of ourselves? It's a lot clearer than us having to figure out ourselves and make our own decisions and stabilize on our own. So that's why a lot of us will use somebody else. Like in this case with the debt, it's like the religious programming, which even if you didn't go through it, like you may have been around, and especially like if you feel like, oh yeah, but there are good people and bad people, and I'm one of the good ones. It's like that's just another rendition of like heaven and hell. So it's the same belief. It's just different names. So one reason that we're making sure that we keep ourselves in debt is because we don't want to be distorted by abundance. There's part of us that doesn't feel like we can handle it. We might become one of those bad people, but let's just look at like abundance in other areas of our life. When you've gotten really, really fit, really healthy, how did that affect other people around you? Let's say that we have an abundance of knowledge. Think of those times when you felt like really, really intelligent and you have an abundance of information that you know and you're willing to share, and all those kinds of things. Just look at how that worked. So like, yes, you can offer it to people, but when you offer your knowledge, your abundance of knowledge to other people, it doesn't take anything away from you. There's no sacrificing, there's no giving of yourself, there's none of that. It's like you're sharing your abundance with others, and that is generous, but it's not like required. It's not like something you have to do. And the other thing is, if someone else is very, very determined not to accept that abundance of knowledge because they're not ready for it, or it goes against their beliefs or whatever, all you can do is offer that and be an example of the possibility. In fact, with knowledge, when we have an abundance of knowledge, it probably just makes us an even higher version of ourselves. So the financial fears of not having debt and having like a surplus and savings and all those kinds of things, it's just that old story. So just think about when you got a lot smarter and you had an abundance of intelligence. How did that affect you? Did you instantly become a bad person and use all of your abundance of knowledge for evil plans, or did you end up, being more of who you are, which is probably pretty awesome. So the reason that we have this pattern, one part of it is the insurance policy for knowing that we're a good person. If something outside of us validates that and verifies that for us, it's a lot clearer that way. The other reason it's so challenging is because, like, let's go back to, like, we have an abundance of intelligence, an abundance of knowledge that we want to share with somebody else. And we want to share so badly with them because we know, like, how much it can benefit them, how helpful it can be, and how much happier they're going to be, and all those things. But if that person isn't compatible with that level of knowledge coming into them at that time, it doesn't matter what we do, it doesn't matter how much we give, how selfless we are, it's just not going in. And they have to, of their own free will, decide that that's something they have to want that, and we can't violate their free will as much as we want to. So the other reason this is hard is because that's a really tough pill for us to swallow. Unless they're asking for it, we can't share it. Same thing is with financial abundance. Same thing as with physical abundance. Same thing with all abundance. Like, even if we transfer it momentarily, like, the patterns are going to run. And just like how you've ended up back here in debt despite other people doing nice things to help you out and try to help you get out of it, it's like your pattern brought you back to being in debt. So that's what people have to change on their own time and in their own way. That's why you're probably running this pattern. All right, if you're ready to let go of that, I'm going to do some energy healing. If you're not sure about this, or you want to think about this a little bit more, go ahead and you can come back to this later, but I'm going to go ahead and start working on whoever wants this pattern. So if you're ready, take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold at the top of your breath. Release. and back in. I'm just working on those underlying patterns that we're afraid that we're a bad person. So ultimately, it's a belief that we're a bad person. Helping you release that, so you can make up your own mind and decide for yourself. All right, so after this, you're probably going to be feeling really confident in who you are. So enjoy that. If you want to stay in this space, it's going to feel like I'm still generating those frequencies and helping you resonate this on your own. After this frequency healing, basically you're going to start feeling a lot more confident in who you are, and you're going to stop doubting yourself as much, which is going to be really refreshing too. And yeah, thanks so much for being here. And then, yeah, if you enjoyed this, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing with your friends. All right, thanks so much. Bye.